In the heart of the galaxy, on a planet far from Earth, the Galactic Council gathered. This was not just any meeting. This was a moment that would change the future of the galaxy. The council room was immense, filled with representatives from dozens of alien species, each more advanced and powerful than the last. The room was a stunning display of advanced technology, holographic screens, glowing symbols, and floating platforms. The leaders sat on tall, sleek chairs, their eyes fixed on the main speaker. The council was composed of the most respected and feared beings in the universe. Their race had conquered entire star systems, forged powerful alliances, and ruled with a firm hand. These leaders were confident, sometimes even arrogant, in their belief that no force in the galaxy could rival their might. They were the dominant power, the unchallenged rulers of the stars. No one, not even the greatest of their enemies, could stand against the might of the Galactic Empire today. However, there was one topic that had caused a stir among them. They had received reports about the humans from their scouts. The reports had been filled with strange details. Humans, a species from a small, relatively unknown planet in a far corner of the galaxy. The humans were primitive, or so they thought. They were weak. They had no spacefaring capabilities. Their weapons were nothing more than toys compared to the technology of the Empire. In short, they had no business being in the same room as these powerful beings. At least, that's what the council had believed. The chair at the head of the council table, a tall, elegant being with silver skin and glowing eyes, stood and addressed the room. The others grew silent, giving him their full attention. He had been the leader of the Galactic Council for centuries, and his words were often law. His name was Voller, the ruler of the galaxy's most powerful faction. His reputation alone commanded respect. Colleagues, Voller began, his voice calm yet filled with authority. We are here today to discuss an issue that has reached our borders. It seems a species known as humans has made contact with several of our outlying colonies. They have sent representatives, requesting what they call diplomacy. A few of the council members chuckled. The sound was like a ripple of laughter running through the room, almost mocking the humans without a second thought. Yes, diplomacy, another member, a reptilian creature with glowing red eyes, added sarcastically. What do they hope to achieve? Perhaps they want to join our galactic empire. Let them. We will show them the might of our fleets and our technology. The members of the council nodded in agreement, the idea of humans trying to match the power of their fleets laughable. Diplomacy had always been the tool of the weak, and the humans were obviously not prepared to challenge the Empire with military strength. The concept that they would even consider negotiation was viewed as an insult to the council. Voller looked around the room, sensing the mood of his fellow leaders. I share your confidence, he said, his voice smooth and persuasive. The humans are but a speck in the vastness of our empire. We shall entertain their request, but we will do so with the understanding that they are here to learn their place in the galaxy. They are no different than the many species we have brought into the fold. Their technology is inferior, their knowledge limited. They are nothing to fear. The laughter continued, this time louder and more unified. The representatives of the other species exchanged smug looks, their superior attitudes clear. The humans were a joke, a distraction at best. They were nothing more than a tiny speck on the galactic map, one that would quickly fade away in the face of true power. And yet Voller, the leader of the Galactic Council, stood tall, his confidence radiating from every word he spoke. He could not see the storm that was brewing, nor could his fellow leaders. The council settled into a calm, almost bored discussion of the details. The humans had apparently sent their best diplomat, a representative who would speak on their behalf and explain their reasons for contacting the Empire. The council agreed that the best course of action was to listen briefly and then remind the humans of their place. They had no intention of treating the humans as equals. No, the Empire would deal with them as they had dealt with countless others, quickly, decisively, and with overwhelming strength. As the council meeting continued, Voller's mind raced with the power of the Empire. He saw no challenge. He envisioned the humans bowing before them, pleading for their survival. He had seen it countless times before. The aliens who had once resisted the Empire had all bent the knee in the end, acknowledging the Empire's superiority. This would be no different. But, unknown to Voller, something was changing. The humans were not like the others. They were not weak, they were not afraid, and they would not bow. The laughter in the room grew, but it would soon stop. The council members were still unaware of the powerful force they had just underestimated. The humans, with all their perceived weaknesses, were about to deliver a message unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A message that would send shockwaves across the Empire. For now, though, the Council continued their discussion, confident that they had everything under control. But deep within their arrogance, a storm was quietly brewing. Humanity had a plan that would ignite the stars themselves, and soon the Galactic Empire would learn what it truly meant to underestimate humanity. The Galactic Council sat in their towering seats, their discussions echoing through the Grand Hall, but for all their power and wealth, none of them could shake the sense of something approaching, something they couldn't see, something they hadn't prepared for. The room was filled with the glow of holoscreens, their shimmering lights barely catching the intensity of the members' sharp, calculating expressions. Yet beneath the surface of their arrogance, something was beginning to stir. The human diplomat had arrived. He wasn't tall like the others in the room. He didn't have the strength of a seasoned warrior, nor the dazzling intellect of a galactic tactician. He was ordinary, just a human, standing in front of beings who had shaped the universe as they saw fit. He was dressed in simple attire, a formal suit that looked out of place in the midst of such magnificence. The alien leaders, used to grand and spectacle, sneered at the sight. What could this man, this weakling, possibly offer in negotiations? They laughed among themselves, mocking his presence, exchanging knowing glances. To them, this human was nothing more than a curiosity, a novelty. Yet the human stood still, unmoved by their ridicule. His eyes remained steady, calm, like an ocean beneath a storm, his expression betraying no sign of fear or uncertainty. For a moment, the room was filled with silence, almost as if they were waiting for the human to speak first. The Council's eyes were locked onto him, their expectations growing. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, steady, and it filled the room with a quiet force that made some of the alien leaders sit straighter in their seats. "We come not to conquer," the diplomat began. "We come to negotiate." The simplicity of his words cut through the room like a blade. The alien council members exchanged glances, their eyes narrowing. Was this it? Was this all humanity had to offer? A single diplomat? The laughter died down, replaced by an unsettling quiet that filled the air. They had expected to hear grandiose claims of conquest or promises of riches. Instead, they were met with a calm and calculated challenge that they couldn't quite comprehend. Another voice, this one sharp and laced with sarcasm, spoke up from the back of the room. "Negotiate with you. You come to us with no power, no technology, and no understanding of our ways. Do you truly think you can change anything?" The human diplomat's gaze never wavered. He met the eyes of the speaker directly, his expression unflinching. "I believe we can," he said simply, his voice carrying the weight of something far deeper than the council could understand. The council members shifted in their seats, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. The reptilian leader, his yellow eyes flickering with amusement, leaned forward. "And how exactly do you plan to do that, human? You barely know how to operate your own ships, let alone engage with a civilization as advanced as ours." The human diplomat, unfazed, smiled. It wasn't a smile of arrogance, but one of quiet confidence, confidence born of something the council had yet to see. "We have something you don't," he said, his words deliberate and slow. "We have the ability to adapt, and we have the will to fight." There was a pause, a long stretch of silence where the air in the room seemed to thicken with tension. The council's arrogance had not prepared them for this humanity's unyielding spirit. Its refusal to back down, even in the face of insurmountable odds. For the first time, the alien leaders began to question what they thought they knew about Earth and its people. Was it possible that this human representative wasn't bluffing? Was it possible that humanity's weakness was a facade, a strategy they had yet to unveil? And then, in the midst of this growing uncertainty, something strange happened. The human diplomat turned, his hand reaching toward a small, unassuming device on the table. With a single press of a button, the room's lights dimmed. The shimmering holoscreens flickered and changed. A new image appeared before the council, a massive, imposing shape emerging from the darkness of space. It was a warship, enormous, more massive than anything the council had ever seen. Its sleek design seemed to distort the very fabric of space around it, bending the light and pulling it into a deadly dance of shadows. The ship's engines glowed a brilliant blue, casting an eerie glow that filled the entire room. The council members stared, speechless. The power of this vessel, the technology displayed before them, was beyond anything they had ever imagined. The ship hovered silently, like a predator in the vastness of space, its weapons gleaming with deadly potential. The entire room felt the weight of its presence, as though it was no longer a mere image, but a tangible, threatening force. "Is this what you've brought?" the council's leader Vola asked in disbelief, his voice betraying a hint of doubt. For the first time, he could barely comprehend what he was seeing. The ship on the screen was unlike anything they had ever encountered, a creation far beyond their own. The human diplomat nodded slowly. This is just the beginning. Humanity does not seek your permission, we seek to coexist, but make no mistake, we will not bow to anyone. The air grew heavy as the council members processed what they had just witnessed. The power of the ship on the screen, combined with the human diplomat's unwavering resolve, sent a shiver through the room. It was clear now the humans had not come to negotiate on equal terms. They had come to assert their presence in the galaxy, and the council had no choice but to reckon with that reality. The silence stretched on, the council members now fully aware that they had underestimated the humans, but it was too late to turn back. The game had changed, and the consequences of their arrogance were about to become very real. And somewhere, out there in the vastness of space, the human battleship awaited, its engines humming with quiet power, ready for what was coming, ready to send a message to the galaxy that would echo for generations to come. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The air in the council chamber was thick with a sense of unease, a silent storm that no one dared acknowledge. The human diplomat, unmoved by the gravity of the moment, stood still, his gaze fixed on the council. It was as though he had already won, his calm demeanor sending a chill down the spines of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. As the image of humanity's warship faded from the screens, the room fell into a heavy silence. For the first time in their reign, the council's leaders were unsure of themselves. Vola, the leader of the council, felt the weight of this uncertainty pressing on him. He had seen the greatest civilizations rise and fall. He had crushed countless rebellions, outsmarted alliances, and extinguished insurrections. Yet something about this human's confidence unnerved him. This was not the fear-stricken species they had expected. The arrogance, the sense of superiority that had defined their rule now seemed fragile, cracked in the face of a species they had dismissed as primitive. As he scanned the room, Vola saw the others, the reptilian general, the insectoid tactician, the shimmering holographic presence of the political ambassador from the Varna, all of them shifting in their seats. No one spoke, no one dared to dot it. Was the leader of the insectoid species who finally broke the silence. His voice was a raspy, clicking sound that resonated with a peculiar intensity. Is this a threat? Are we to believe that a single ship can challenge the Empire? The human diplomat did not flinch. He simply nodded. It's not just one ship, it's a statement. His words echoed in the silent room, a quiet storm that reverberated through the council's collective consciousness. Humanity has no desire to submit. You have been the rulers of the stars for too long, but your reign will soon be challenged not by an army, but by a resolve that cannot be broken. Vola's eyes narrowed, his sharp gaze piercing through the diplomat. He could feel the pulse of tension in the room, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. There was something in the human's words, a power that didn't rely on strength or numbers, but on something far more dangerous. Will resolve, Vola repeated, his voice low and calculating. You speak of resolve, yet you have no army, no fleet. What do you think you can accomplish against us, when we have crushed entire civilizations with a flick of our fingers? The human smiled, not out of arrogance, but understanding. You see, that's the difference. You've relied on your power, your fleets, your technology, but humanity, we've never been bound by what others expect of us. He paused, allowing the words to settle, their meaning clear. We're not afraid to stand alone, and when we do, we'll be ready for you. The council shifted uneasily, the words unsettling in a way they couldn't quite understand. Humanity had always been known for its unpredictability, its endless capacity for survival. But this was different. This wasn't just a plea for mercy or a desperate attempt to avoid war. It was something else entirely. It was a statement of defiance, of unyielding spirit that the council couldn't comprehend. As the diplomat spoke, a small hollow screen flickered to life on one of the walls, catching the attention of the leaders. It was a new message, coming from deep space. The council's eyes widened as they saw what appeared to be another human warship, a colossal creation, much larger and more imposing than the one they had seen earlier. The sheer size of the ship alone seemed to defy all logic. It wasn't just a ship, it was a fortress capable of laying waste to entire fleets without even firing a single shot. The message accompanying the image was simple: humanity is not a species to be underestimated. The room was now filled with a sense of awe mixed with a growing panic that could no longer be ignored. The ships they had seen, the ones that had been dismissed as mere threats, were only the tip of the iceberg. Humanity's reach was far greater than they had ever imagined. The insectoid leader was the first to speak again, his voice barely audible, a tremor of fear creeping into his words. This is impossible. How could they have built such ships? How have they hidden this power for so long? The human diplomat did not answer immediately. He simply observed the council, letting their confusion and fear settle over them. There was no need for him to explain. The evidence was now undeniable. Humanity had a power far beyond what they had let on, and the council's dismissive attitude had only sealed their fate. We didn't hide our power, the diplomat finally said. We simply didn't see the need to show it until now. The council was silent again, but this time, the silence was different. It wasn't a silence born of confidence or smug superiority. It was a silence filled with realization. The council's most powerful leaders, the ones who had once believed that they could control everything in the galaxy, now understood that they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity, a species they had once thought weak and insignificant. But now, they realized, humanity was anything but that. The human diplomat took a step forward, his voice steady and calm as he spoke once more. Empire is built on fear, on your ability to crush those who stand against you. But fear is a fleeting thing, and when the galaxy learns what humanity is capable of, your reign will crumble. This is not a threat, it's a promise. The council was shaken, but there was no turning back. The pieces were set in motion. The conflict that had once seemed impossible was now inevitable, and as the human diplomat turned and walked toward the exit, his words echoed in the minds of the council members. We will not bow, we will not fall. Outside the stars shimmered, bright and vast, like a canvas waiting to be painted, and humanity, once underestimated, was ready to change the galaxy forever. The silence that hung in the room was thick, heavy, and unshakable. No one spoke. No one dared. The enormity of the situation weighed down on every member of the Galactic Council. The Grand Hall, once a place where power and authority reigned, supreme, now felt like a tomb. The room, filled with beings who had ruled the stars for centuries, stood still as the realization slowly settled in. Humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed. They were a threat, a worsened, unpredictable one. The human diplomat stood with unwavering confidence, his eyes calm but carrying the quiet power of someone who knew that the storm he had stirred was inevitable. His earlier words had been nothing short of a declaration, one that had shaken the council to its core. And now, the rest of the galaxy would soon understand the message he had delivered. Outside the council chamber, the stars seemed to shimmer with new energy. The galaxy, once a quiet stage for the Empire's unchallenged dominance, was about to become a battleground. Humanity had not only entered the galactic scene, they had ignited the flames of war, and the first sparks had already been cast. Within the chamber, the alien leaders exchanged tense glances. The reptilian general was the first to speak, his voice cutting through the air like a sharpened blade. Are we truly to stand by and allow this? His eyes narrowed, his fingers twitching with impatience. We are the masters of this galaxy. How dare this species come to us with such arrogance? The council members, all of whom had ruled with an iron fist for so long, now found themselves faced with the question of how to deal with a species that had defied them in such a bold and direct manner. No longer were they in control of the narrative. Humanity had thrown the first stone, and it was clear that the once peaceful galaxy was now a powder keg. But it wasn't just about military strength anymore. This was about something deeper, something that went beyond fleets and weapons. Humanity's unyielding resolve had done something no one had anticipated. It had awakened a fear that the council thought they had buried long ago, the fear of a force they couldn't control. The insectoid tactician, her multifaceted eyes reflecting a flicker of concern, spoke next. We've underestimated them. We thought we could overpower them, that their technology would be nothing but a fleeting illusion. But what we saw today, that ship, it's real, and it's more than just a threat. It's a sign. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, but the council members still couldn't fully comprehend the depth of what they were facing. Humanity's power was no longer theoretical, it was tangible, undeniable, and it had a message. We will not kneel. The Vonner ambassador, his shimmering holographic form flickering with unease, stepped forward. His race had long been known for their cunning diplomacy, but this was beyond anything he had ever faced. What are we to do? He asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. Do we proceed with the treaty as planned? Or do we prepare for war? The question hung in the air, unanswered. The truth was, none of them had a clear answer. They had expected to overwhelm humanity with their superiority, to crush any signs of rebellion with ease. But the tables had turned. Humanity had exposed a weakness in their strategy, a flaw that could no longer be ignored. As the leaders of the Galactic Empire grappled with the reality of what was happening, a message flashed onto the central holoscreen, a transmission from deep space. The council fell silent again, their eyes fixated on the screen. A new image materialized, this time showing a second human ship, vast, imposing, and as terrifying as the first. This one, however, was different. Its design was more aggressive, its weapons clearly visible, its intent unmistakable. This is no longer just a show of force. The diplomat's voice echoed calm and steady. It's a declaration of war. The galaxy has underestimated humanity for too long, and now, you will learn why no one dares to challenge us. The words sent a shockwave through the council. They had thought themselves invincible, but the galaxy was quickly proving otherwise. They had faced countless enemies, crushed them with ease, and watched as they submitted to the Empire's rule. But humanity, they would not submit. They would not bend. And the council was finally beginning to understand the cost of underestimating them. In the chamber, the leaders exchanged glances of fear and disbelief. The leader of the reptilian species clenched his fists, his claws digging into the table. "What do we do now?" he growled. "How do we respond to this challenge?" The human diplomat's gaze remained unwavering as he replied, "You can fight if you choose. But know this, the war you're about to wage will be unlike anything you've ever faced, and in the end, the galaxy will remember the day it learned what humanity is capable of." The council was silent once more, the weight of those words sinking in. The human diplomat turned to leave, his every step a quiet, defiant march towards the exit. As he walked through the grand chamber doors, he cast one final glance at the council. His eyes were cold, but there was a fire behind them, a fire that promised destruction, change, and a future where humanity would no longer be a species to be dismissed. Outside, the stars shone brighter than before, as though the universe itself was preparing for the inevitable. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for eons, but now, it seemed the balance was about to shift. Humanity had arrived, and they would not be ignored. The hum of tension in the council chamber could now be felt like a low growl, vibrating through the air as the realization of what was at stake began to settle in. The council members had always been masters of their domains, their civilizations, built on the ashes of others. But now, the tables were turning. The power they had once taken for granted was slipping through their fingers, and in its place, humanity's unwavering resolve filled the void. The question that haunted each member of the Galactic Council now was simple. What would they do? Vorla, the leader of the council, remained at the head of the table, his mind racing. His heart, however, was heavy with uncertainty. He had never been one to show weakness, and yet, as he stared at the holographic displays, he couldn't shake the feeling that they had been caught in a trap they hadn't seen coming. They had underestimated humanity. They had laughed at them, mocked them, and dismissed them as nothing more than a speck on the galactic map. But now, humanity's very presence was a threat they couldn't ignore. The image of the massive warships, and the confident words of the human diplomat echoed in his mind. "You have no idea what you are facing," the diplomat had said. His words hadn't been empty threats. There had been a weight to them, a truth that resonated deeper than any technological display or grand fleet. Humanity was not afraid. Humanity had discovered something that the council never understood. Strength was not just in the power to destroy. It was in the will to fight, to keep standing when everyone else expected them to fall. "Do we respond with force?" the insectoid leader hissed, her sharp mandibles clicking with agitation. "We have the fleets, the weapons, the power to obliterate them. Why hesitate?" The question hung in the air, but it wasn't one that could be easily answered. Yes, they had the firepower. Yes, they had the technology, but something in the air had shifted. And it was clear to everyone in the room, the moment for brute force was no longer enough. They could see it in the calm of the human diplomat's demeanor, in the flicker of fear that had now replaced their previous confidence. Humanity's greatest strength was that they refused to bow, refused to surrender, even when it would have been easier to do so. The council knew this truth now, and they feared it. Another member, a being of pure energy, flickered nervously. "If we engage them in full force, we risk destabilizing the entire galaxy. The humans are not like the others we've conquered. They have something different." His voice trailed off as if he could not fully grasp the power he was describing. "They will not go down without a fight." The room fell into an eerie silence. The members exchanged uneasy glances, their minds struggling to reconcile what they knew with what they had just seen. They had thought that this human envoy would be just another easy negotiation, another in a long line of peaceful but it was nothing like that. This was no negotiation. This was a declaration, a warning that humanity had the power to reshape the galaxy. Let us not forget, the reptilian general finally spoke up, his voice a low growl. They are still nothing more than a primitive species. One ship, no matter how large, does not change the balance of the galaxy. We've destroyed entire civilizations with less effort. Their bravado is a ploy, a distraction. We will crush them before they have a chance to stand. But even as he spoke, doubt lingered in the air. The other council members looked at him, but their eyes betrayed something he did not want to acknowledge: uncertainty. They had all seen the images of humanity's ships. They had all heard the diplomat's words, each one dripping with a calm, unwavering confidence that made their own fear seem so fragile. Vola rose from his seat, towering over the others, his silver skin glowing faintly. His voice rang out across the chamber, strong yet tinged with an emotion none of them had expected. "We are not a species that is easily intimidated," he said, his tone measured and commanding, "but we must act wisely. We have never faced an enemy who refused to follow the rules of power. They believe that force alone will not win the war. They understand something deeper, something we have ignored for far too long." The council members listened, their eyes narrowing as they realized what he was implying. Humanity had unlocked a hidden strength, a force that transcended the physical. It was the power of belief, of a collective will to rise above any challenge, no matter how insurmountable it seemed. It was a dangerous thing to underestimate, and the council was beginning to understand that they had made a grave mistake. "We have underestimated them," Vola continued, his voice softer now, but still carrying the weight of his authority. "And now we must decide. Do we crush them with all our might, or do we find another path? One that doesn't ignite the galaxy in flames?" The room grew colder, as though the council itself was trapped in the web of their own indecision. Every path seemed fraught with peril, every decision carrying the weight of the future. If they attacked and failed, it would mark the beginning of the end for their empire. If they surrendered, if they chose to back down, it would shatter the illusion of their invincibility, perhaps. "We must understand them," the Vonner ambassador suggested, his voice unusually hesitant. "Before we make our move, perhaps we need to understand why humanity is so determined, what drives them to challenge us when they know what we can do." Vola turned his gaze on the Vonner ambassador, his piercing eyes narrowing with consideration. "You believe we should give them a chance? To talk, to negotiate again?" The Vonner nodded. "It's possible we may find that they seek something more than domination, and perhaps we can offer them something they need." The idea of diplomacy had not been entirely abandoned, but now it seemed like a last-ditch attempt to avoid the conflict that was already bubbling to the surface. Still, in the depths of their hearts, the council leaders knew that the moment had passed. Humanity had already made its choice, and now, the galaxy would have to live with the consequences. As the council members fell into a tense silence, the last lingering shred of hope for peace began to fade. The future, it seemed, was already set in motion. Humanity had lit the stars on fire, and there was no turning back now. The council had no choice but to face the storm they had so arrogantly ignored. The war had already begun. The war was no longer a distant thought or a shadow on the horizon. It had become real, undeniable, and inescapable. The Galactic Empire, which had once stretched across the stars with an iron grip, now found itself facing the greatest threat to its supremacy in its long history. The realization that humanity's more seemingly insignificant earthlings had the ability to challenge the established order was like a thunderclap that rattled the very foundations of the empire. No longer was there any question of what to do. The time for hesitation had passed. Vola, the leader of the council, stared out at the dark expanse of space from his high command post. The stars twinkled in the distance, indifferent to the turmoil. Brewing within the council chamber, his mind raced, thoughts colliding with each other in a flurry of urgency. He had always prided himself on his ability to maintain control, to steer the empire with the surety of an emperor who had never known defeat, but now he was no longer certain. The pieces were moving faster than he could anticipate. Humanity had sent their message, a message of defiance, of strength, and of an unwillingness to bow. He turned his gaze back to the display table, where a large holographic map of the galaxy now flickered. The image of the human warships, colossal ships that had been both a threat and a promise, loomed large on the screen. These ships weren't like any the council had ever encountered. They were not sleek, elegant, or built for diplomacy. They were built for one purpose: war. And they were closing in. We cannot ignore them any longer, Vola said, his voice low, carrying the weight of realization. The council members, once so confident, now looked at him with a mixture of uncertainty and fear. They had been so sure of their victory, so certain that the galaxy would fall in line as it always had. But humanity had torn that certainty apart, with nothing more than a single ship, a single diplomat, and the strength of their unbroken will. The reptilian general, still seething with anger, was the first to speak. We should strike. We have the power. We have the fleets. We should crush them before they can cause any more damage. His voice was rough, filled with the bloodlust that had driven his people for centuries. To him there was only one answer: annihilation. But the insectoid tactician, ever the strategist, raised a hand, her many eyes glinting with caution. It's not that simple, she said. We cannot fight them the way we have fought others. This is not just a matter of firepower. This is different. Humanity has shown us something we haven't prepared for: a willingness to sacrifice, to endure. They've sent a message, not just with their ships, but with their resolve. We must understand what we're facing before we make our move. Vola nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing as he took in the gravity of her words. Humanity's resolve was unlike anything they had seen in the galaxy before. They had faced many powerful foes, but none had ever stood firm in the face of annihilation. Like this, humanity didn't just fight to survive, they fought because they believed in something greater than themselves. And that belief, that will to stand against overwhelming odds, was what terrified the council. Perhaps we should have listened sooner, the Vonner ambassador said quietly, his voice tinged with regret. Perhaps we should have taken their threat more seriously when they first arrived. But it was too late for second-guessing. The decisions had been made, and the moment for diplomacy had passed. Humanity had no longer come seeking peace. They had come to assert their dominance, to show the galaxy that they would not bow to any force, not even the might of the Galactic Empire. We'll strike first, Volar said, his voice hardening with resolve. We'll show them that no one can challenge the Empire. We've crushed empires before, and we'll do it again. Prepare the fleet for deployment. We will not wait any longer. As the council members nodded and began to disperse to ready their forces, the weight of their decision settled on them. The war was now inevitable. Humanity had pushed them into a corner from which there was no escape. The question was no longer about whether they would fight, but how. The human fleet, now fully visible on the screens, had grown in size. What had once been a handful of ships now seemed like an unrelenting wave of destruction. Each vessel carried the promise of something far more than the council could have anticipated. It wasn't just their firepower that struck fear into the hearts of the council members, it was the sheer audacity of their presence. These humans had no fear. They didn't back down. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to dominate. Human ships entered orbit around one of the council's colonies, a peaceful world that had once been a symbol of the Empire's strength and unity. The fleet's shadow stretched across the surface of the planet, its presence an unmistakable declaration that the fleet's flagship, a massive, imposing vessel, loomed at the center, its weaponry gleaming under the lights of distant stars. The humans weren't just sending a message to the council, they were sending a message to the entire galaxy. The era of the Empire was over. The reign of the Galactic Council, built on the subjugation of countless civilizations, was coming to an end. The first shot fired from the human ship wasn't just a weapon, it was a warning, a single, precise blast that obliterated one of the Empire's most advanced defense stations in the blink of an eye. The shockwave rippled through space, carrying the unmistakable mark of humanity's resolve. We've been waiting for this moment, a human voice echoed over the communication channels. This is your warning. Turn back while you still can, or face the consequences. The council had made its choice. Now they would face the consequences of their actions. The war had begun. Battle was no longer a theory, it was a brutal, unforgiving reality. As the human warships loomed on the outskirts of the Galactic Empire's territory, the vast expanse of space seemed to contract, each passing moment tightening the noose around the Empire's once unshakable dominance. The first shots had been fired, and what followed was chaos, a storm of fire and light that tore through the calm of space like a flash of lightning. The once pristine fleets of the Galactic Empire, sophisticated and awe-inspiring, were now shattered, their ships burning in the cold void, swallowed by the might of humanity's war machines. Vola stood in the heart of his command center, watching the live feed as the devastation unfolded before him. He had once looked out upon the galaxy with the confidence of a being who had never known defeat, but now, the images on the screen told a different story. One of his most advanced battle cruisers, a symbol of the Empire's untouchable power, was gone in a single strike, reduced to a scattering of debris that would drift through space for millennia. A mighty warship, one that had crushed countless enemies in the past, was now nothing but a smoldering wreck. How is this possible? Vola muttered to himself, the weight of disbelief thickening his voice. How have they done this? The answer lay in the human ships themselves. The weaponry they possessed was unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. Their technology was not just advanced, it was unpredictable. Each strike from the human fleet seemed to defy the laws of physics. Their ships moved with a precision that left no room for counterattack, slipping through the Empire's defenses like shadows through light. No matter how hard the Empire's fleets fought back, no matter how many ships they sent into the fray, humanity's resolve remained unshaken. From his vantage point, Vola saw the inevitable unfold before him. His fleet was falling apart. One by one, his most trusted ships were destroyed, wiped out with terrifying efficiency. His best commanders were being routed by enemy forces that seemed to know their every move before they made it. The once proud Empire was on the brink of collapse, a 1,000-year reign being reduced to a fleeting moment of fragility. And in the midst of this destruction stood the human fleet, defiant, relentless, unstoppable. "We have underestimated them," the insectoid tactician whispered, her many eyes flicking nervously between the burning images of their ships. She had been the first to warn the Council, but even she had not foreseen the true extent of humanity's resolve. They are not just fighting for survival, they're fighting for something more. "We can't match that." Vola turned to her, the fear in his eyes betraying his once unshakable confidence. "Then what do we do now?" His voice was raw, the mask of control slipping away as the Empire's doom came into focus. The Council had no answer. They had never expected a fight like this. They had assumed that humanity, despite its bravado, was nothing more than a weak, primitive species, a relic of an old, forgotten world. But now, humanity had proved them wrong. They had shown that even in the darkest moments, they would not yield. Even when the odds were stacked impossibly high, they would rise, and they would fight with everything they had. The Empire's arrogance had left them blind to this truth. In the heart of the human fleet, the captain of the flagship stood on the bridge, staring out at the field of destruction. He was a man who had once been a simple soldier, but now, in this moment, he was something else entirely, a symbol of humanity's defiance. His crew was just as resolute, their faces hard with determination. There was no fear in their eyes, only a single-minded drive to end the war, to ensure that humanity would no longer be a species to be dismissed, to be forgotten. "We are not here to conquer," the captain said to his crew, his voice carrying the weight of every word. "We are here to send a message, to remind them that no one, no empire, no power, is invincible. We will not bow, we will not bend, we will not bend. We'll make them remember the name humanity." The crew cheered, the sound echoing throughout the bridge. The message was clear. Humanity had not come to play by the rules of the Galactic Empire. They had come to rewrite the rules entirely. On the battlefield, the humans struck with a ferocity that left no room for mercy. Each shot fired from their ships was a promise, a reminder that humanity would not be forgotten. The Empire's fleet, once so proud and untouchable, was now a collection of burning husks drifting in the void, caught in the wake of humanity's wrath. And yet, there was no celebration among the human forces. They knew the battle was far from over. The Empire would not fall quietly. They would not surrender without a fight. But humanity's resolve, tempered in the fire of countless wars and struggles, had become a weapon more powerful than any starship or fleet. It was a weapon they wielded with brutal efficiency. With each passing moment, humanity carved its mark into the galaxy, a mark that no one would ever be able to erase. Back in the council chamber, the leaders of the Galactic Empire were now facing the truth. They had been defeated not by force alone, but by the strength of will. Humanity had shown them what true power was. It was not in the size of your fleet or the firepower of your ships. It was in the heart, in the spirit of a species that refused to bow before any empire, no matter how powerful. And so, as the final shots were fired, as the last of the Empire's fleets was wiped out, the message rang clear across the galaxy. Humanity had come, and they would not be forgotten. The Empire had fallen, and in its place a new order would rise, a human order, built on defiance, resilience, and the unyielding will to survive. Humanity had proven its place among the stars, and no one, no empire, would ever be able to erase that truth.